Let's clear it past the front window. Tired. As the summer went along, I got I got my real tire on the road. I look over. It was a lot stronger.
So he can start.
2 minutes.
Got a freezer one day. On my road. It's laying there in the road.
Oh, just go out in the forest. Be surprised what you pick up out in the forest. That's another thing that we get into when I feel like Forest Service, cleaning up. And we'll have people come into landfill and say, I'm sorry, we're closed. And they get upset. So they just go down the road.
All right. How do you go over there? At 3?
2. One more minute.
Yeah. It was actually a pretty nice easy chair right there. It's upside down.
Yeah.
It was double. A lot of deer, a lot of possum.
Like that motor rail or the side rail? Or
Well,
what?
they're dropping on a ramp. Ramp that comes down, looking underpass.
Yeah.
5:30, Mayor.
No gavel. Good evening. This is the July 13th, 2020 regular City Council meeting. I am now calling the meeting to order. I would like to ask the City Clerk to please call the roll.
Darcy Long Curtis,
Present.
Rod Runyon,
Here.
Linda Miller,
Here.
Tim McLaughlin,
Present.
Scott Randall,
Here.
Mayor Mays.
Present. Thank you. I would now like to ask Councilor Scott Randall to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Okay, go ahead. Second motion.
It's been moved by Councilor Miller and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. Just a couple quick things. I sent you an update last week, but we have been working with the Veterans Museum group, and I think Councilor Runyon might have more to say about that. But we are moving forward, and they're planning to actually start moving in Saturday. So that's a very exciting piece of information. And then I just wanted to remind you all that August 28th is the deadline to file for city council and mayor positions. It's been very quiet so far, but I just wanted to put that reminder out there in case anybody needs to know about that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Julie. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, moving right along. City council reports. We'll start with Councilor Randall.
Report.
No report. Okay, Councilor Runyon.
I had a meeting with a veterans group called Outside the Wire that deals with veterans that have needs, special needs, monetary needs, housing, etc. On June 26th. On the July 2nd, Q Life had a special meeting on their project in the downtown area. I'll let Darcy talk more about that in her report probably. And yeah, we've been, the Columbia Gorge Veterans Museum space they were in with the American Legion building. I mentioned before, the building was sold, and so the museum has been trying to find a different way and a new location to proceed. And the city manager of the Dalles, Julie Kruger, came up with a really great idea with Izetta, I think, leading the charge on that one. I appreciate that, Izetta. And we've come to an agreement and putting the paperwork together to move the Veterans Museum, which incorporates both sides of the Columbia River, 5 counties, Hood River, Sherman, and Wasco County, the Oregon side, Skamania and Klickitat County on the other side. We are going to be moving into the what were the municipal chambers of City Hall. Municipal court is now held in the council chambers, and this is really a good thing. And I think we're going to have a good partnership with the fire department, with the fire district, because of the first responder museum, which is kind of a static museum. We're going to incorporate that into our role, working with first responders, and try to make that a more robust position as well. So looking forward to it. It'll probably be toward middle to the end of August before we're up and running in the new facility. And the Vote Fountain ribbon cutting was held by the Lions Club and community members in the beautification committee, and I attended that at the Sorosis Park on July the 9th. That's it.
Council Miller?
Okay, I met with the city manager, and I also attended a gathering at the Bargeway Pub on the 4th, the Independence Day for, it was a really nice event down there. And there was music by a local band, Brewers Great. And then I left early, but the fireworks were seen. And it was televised by Channel 2, KATU?
KGW.
No,
KATU.
KATU. And then I went home, and because I can see the fireworks better from my front porch, I had a couple of friends and my brother from Portland area that we watched. And I made the comment because there were so many people parked along the street in front of me and up and down Brewery Grade that a lot of people complained about the dollars that were being spent on that. But it was great entertainment for the citizens of this community, and we need to pay back to our citizens. And I think that was a good event. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin?
I did attend the July 9th Vote Fountain ribbon cutting, and that went very, very well. Great to see that fountain revitalized and also the work being done. I will attend a airport commission meeting this Friday, and I did an emergency meeting about 3 weeks ago. And as a result, the fuel tanks that are installed above ground, new federal regulations require a fuel filtering system upgrade. And the estimated cost is $80,000. So they're looking into options. Right now, everything's working, but by January, we'll have to find some kind of solution to that. Record fuel sales as of June, 23,100 gallons, which is an all-time high. The Apron project, which is the section in front of the terminal building, is starting on the 20th, and it's programmed to last for 60 days. We've been having military units out of Fort Lewis doing landing at night using sections of the airport. We've been having a lot of military aircraft coming through, which is wonderful use of that facility. I can tell you that watching the fireworks on display on television, it was a spectacular view of the Dalles. And I was very proud to be a citizen of the Dalles when I watched, and how well and how the music and the whole thing went so well. So kudos to everyone that's involved in that. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councilor Long Curtis?
Yeah, so I'll keep mine brief. This time I just want to focus on some of the homeless issue things that I've been working on. I know that we recently had some citizen feedback, I guess I would say, and it was very valid feedback about what's going on down at St. Vincent. But I just want to point out that there are multiple things going on down there. A lot of those people are not regularly from here and have come into town. I'm not really clear why. I'm still trying to get some information on that. But on the plus side, which is really hard to see because of all those people down there on the sidewalk with garbage where they shouldn't be, we actually have had a lot of success placing people in either permanent housing or in transitional housing lately because of the extra dollars that came into our area for COVID. And so I don't have an exact number at this point, but I can think of at least 4 family units or individuals who have been placed in permanent housing. So that's a solution because those people are no longer on the street at all. It's gone. So, and that's my report.
As far as my activities go, on June 23rd, I attended a meeting sponsored by the Department of Environmental Quality regarding the Ameritise plant and what's going on with that. I did a radio interview that same morning with Mark Bailey. On the 25th, I attended the Columbia River Gorge Commission meeting, going over the latest changes that they'd like to make to that management plan. On the 29th, I attended a Zoom meeting with the Oregon Mayors Association. On the 4th of July, I also attended the aforementioned party at the Bargeway. I actually sat with Councilor Miller and her brother. And it's nice to know that charm and charisma runs throughout that whole family. It's just
Did she really leave early?
On the 7th, I met the new district attorney for Wasco County, Matthew Ellis. On the 9th, I also attended the Volk Fountain ribbon cutting. I attended the weekly League of Oregon Cities conference call on Friday the 10th, and that same day, the Skill Center and Housing project groundbreaking at the Columbia Gorge Community College campus. So that concludes my report. Item 8 is the consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the City Council to spend its time and energy on the important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. One is the approval of the June 22nd regular City Council minutes. And the next one is, the second one is 7 appointments by the mayor. And I wanted to read those. Just give me a second. Yes. Okay, I'd like to appoint Russ Brown to the Traffic Safety Committee. Reappoint Joe Barcott to the City Budget Committee. Reappoint Leon Server to the Urban Renewal Budget Committee. Appoint Bev Eby to the Historic Landmarks Commission. Reappoint Brent Bybee and Jeff Stiles to the Plan Commission, and appoint Alan Easling to the Plan Commission. And I'm happy to say too that our newest councilor, Scott Randall, has agreed to step into the council liaison position at the Historic Landmarks Commission, and Councilor McLaughlin has moved over to be the council liaison with the Airport Commission. Does anybody have any questions? With that, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved by Councilor Long Curtis and seconded by Councilor Runyon to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is item 9A, Google Enterprise Zone Agreement Amendment. And I believe we have our Enterprise Zone staff liaison, Matthew Cleaves, with us, who is going to give the staff report. Take it away, Matthew.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Yes, so good evening, Mayor and councilors. I'd like to start my report by giving just a little bit of brief context. The Dalles-Wasco County Enterprise Zone was sponsored by the City of the Dalles and Wasco County and in 2008 and expired in 2018. Relatively recently, we went through a process to renew that zone, and it's now called the Wasco County Joint Enterprise Zone. So just wanted to make a distinction between those two. Under the previous zone, the Dalles-Wasco County Enterprise Zone, Design LLC has 3 long-term abatement agreements with the zone sponsors. Each of these tax abatement agreements have standard minimum job creation requirements, wage and compensation requirements, among several others, as well as a locally negotiated component. The 3rd agreement with Design LLC was signed in 2015, and in particular, it has a locally negotiated component requiring Design LLC to pay community service fees to the zone sponsors based on the cubic footage of the facilities built at the site. These fees essentially can be broken down into 2 major categories. One are initial project fees, and the other one is annual project fees. They're both computed by cubic volume. However, the initial fees are computed at 16 cents per cubic foot, and the annual fee is computed at just over 11 cents per cubic foot, 11.4 actually. As the phased approach of construction at the site progressed, along with a variety of different building types, the sponsors entered into what was called the first agreement letter in 2017. And this first agreement letter in 2017 addressed what's called a modular electric building, or an MEB. And this letter detailed agreement that the facility's cubic volume, the MEB's cubic volume, would be included in the initial and annual payments associated with the abatement. And so before you tonight, in a similar vein, we have what is called the second letter agreement. And this again clarifies and details agreement that the other MEBs, 2, 3, and 4, as well as what we call phase 2 and 50% of the central utility building, will also be included in both the initial and annual fee cubic footage calculation. A schedule of those fees as a result of that cubic footage is detailed in Exhibit A, which I believe was included in your packet. The other major point out of this second letter agreement is that it clarifies a provision in the original 2015 agreement that allows or permits a tax abatement on a warehouse Design LLC can construct within 1 mile of the primary site, or the Taylor Lake site. Based on this letter, the second agreement letter, this facility would only be subject to annual fees, not the initial, and cannot be located on the former aluminum site. A graphic of this 1 mile radius was included in your packet as well. These documents before you represent, substantial effort and diligence from both county and city staff, as well as Design LLC, in reaching an agreement and kind of putting the third agreement to rest, and we can move forward with the Exhibit A schedule. This information before you was presented to the Wasco County Board of Commissioners on July 1st, and it was passed unanimously. And so if it passes tonight with your agreement, staff will work to get signatures from all parties and distribute executed agreement letters as well. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from Councilor Miller?
Matthew, this 1 mile radius, does Google own all that property?
No, that 1 mile radius just denotes that 1 mile boundary where they could potentially build a warehouse. That does not mean that they own that property or that they have received any kind of land use approval or gone through any other process required to construct a warehouse.
And that it looks like a body of water that goes through like a third of the way. Is that Taylor Lakes or Columbia?
Give me one moment. Let me scroll to that graphic. Do you mean to the north?
You know where the buildings are? Yes, it would be the north.
Yeah, so to the north and to the east, you do have the Columbia River there. That's the major body of water near the site.
Okay, thank you.
This would be Channel Creek.
Any other questions for Matthew?
I just make a comment as a former county commissioner that helped work through 2 of the agreements that are old agreements now. I'm really glad to see where we're at and how it has changed the complexion of the community over the years. The volunteerism from the Google employees and dollars donated to things like library projects, fire department, the city, just many things that are not out there all the time. And without the enterprise, without that company here, many of these projects just would not have happened. So I'm glad we're continuing to move along in a positive direction.
I
Thank you.
second that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm entertaining a motion to approve the agreement. Did somebody first it?
No.
Oh, you can't.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Let's see. Move to approve the agreement. A second letter agreement with Design LLC.
Moved by Councilor Miller, seconded by Councilor Randall, to approve the agreement and the amendment. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Matthew. And thank you, Julie, for allowing me to come through with this. I echo the words of Matthew and Councilor Miller and Runyon. I think this is a very positive development for the city of the Dalles and for Wasco County. Thank you all very much. Next on the agenda is the recycling proposal. Our city manager will be giving the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. I have already provided you with the staff report. So just to highlight, we've been working with Wasco County, we've been working with DEQ, the Dalles Disposal, and the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to develop a recycling program that will meet the requirements of DEQ and allow us to stop landfilling our recyclables in the city. So in the second paragraph of the background, I highlighted what the changes would be, and I can answer any questions if that wasn't clear. That's for curbside recycling. You would still be able to take some things to the recycling center out at Waste Management.
Waste disposal, the Dalles disposal.
Thank you. And the proposal is to implement a 2.16% surcharge that would be added to the Dalles disposal bills that would remain in effect until the market prices return, which we have no idea when that will be. But Wasco County has approved this, and I'm told that the city of Mosier also approved it. So we, as the city of the Dalles, are last as far as the Wasco shed goes to approve it. I had originally put in my staff report that we would make it effective no later than January 1st, but since everyone else has already approved it, I would ask the council tonight if you approve the resolution to change the effective date to today's date, July 13th, 2020. That way we can sign our letter to DEQ and get moving forward more quickly. I think that concludes my staff report, unless anyone has any questions.
Let me just ask real quick. Do you want that as part of the motion, the effective date?
Yes, I had in the motion originally. Oh, I guess I didn't have it in there, but the resolution title says effective January 1st, 2021, and I would like to change the title to say July 13th, 2020.
Okay, Councilor McLaughlin?
2.16 equates to what cost increase, do you know?
Yes, I do, Counselor. It would be about 39 cents a month for a resident who had a 32-gallon can. And if you have the big roll cart, it would be 58 cents a month.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I have one. Julie, is the 2.16% increase due to the increase in transporting, or is it because of the changes, or both?
It is to transport the recyclables to the Portland market.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the changes that we're doing. Yeah.
Well, what has to do with the changes is those are the items now that will be accepted at the recycling centers in Portland. So there are some things that they won't take, so we just won't put them curbside.
Thank you. Any
Mr.
other
Mayor,
questions?
I have a question.
Councilor Long Curtis?
Yes. So Julie, is there a separate, I mean, the agreement that you're signing, what is it specifically that triggers the end of the surcharge from the company?
So the surcharge, that will be monitored by the Dalles Disposal.
Mhm.
Don't expect that to happen in the near future, but the reason we made it a surcharge instead of a fee increase is so that we can take it off when the markets come back up.
Right. That's a great way to do it. I'm just curious, what is the amount? Because it's kind of nebulous just to say when the markets have returned. And I'm curious if there's a specific trigger or a target that we're going for, or who is going to decide? Is it a mutual decision?
I think it would be, our decision would be based on information we get from the Dalles Disposal. They'll be the ones who are monitoring that market.
So Julie, if I could jump in, Jim Winterbottom with the Dalles Disposal, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So we monitor it monthly with a PO from the processors in Portland. And the trigger point for the original concurrence to go to the landfill was when the cost of processing recycle was more expensive than landfilling. Currently, if we look at round numbers, landfilling is $45 a ton with very minimal transportation since it's in Wasco County. The PO I got today for commingled material in Portland was $106 charge plus $35 a ton transportation. The 2.16 surcharge was derived about a year ago when the commodities were being processed at about 80 a ton plus 35 transportation. So it's already sliding the opposite direction. But at some point we felt we just had to keep this moving to get the material out of the landfill. And this change in the program mirrors what was done in Hood River County about a year ago, and their surcharge that was implemented at the origination date has not been changed.
And that's fine. Do you understand what I'm asking though? I'm asking for some more clarification as to exactly when it ends. So like how much, maybe Mr. Winterbottom could answer, like how volatile is it? Like, do you need it at the certain level for 6 months before you're sure that you can take the surcharge off? Because it is a little bit of a hassle to keep passing ordinances, but at the same time, we don't want to keep going through with charging if the situation is through.
Correct. The surcharge would move as the markets move in a more positive or a less charging direction. And the $45 a ton was kind of the trigger point with DEQ and the concurrence. So the recycled material needs to get back closer to a less negative market, if you will, before the surcharge is going to come off.
That's my question.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make a comment that I talked to Jim earlier today and wanted to know that there was a source for the citizens to go to find out exactly what could be recycled at curbside. And he said that it was going to be taking an educational pull, but there would be a website. Is that right, Jim?
Correct. We getting ready to launch a website now. We're working with Tri-County HHW. Information will be in their newsletters. We will have curbside tags for our customers. And it's going to be a curve because people have been recycling plastic bags, clear clamshell food containers, and produce containers for a number of years. which never really were a product of the material that it was set out to be. So we will definitely have our hands full with educating people and using the website to our advantage.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. So I really believe that this needs to happen. I think it's a fair amount. It's a good deal. And I am going to vote to support it. However, I'm just going to go on the record and say that I really think there should be a more specific trigger, or we should be getting a more specific answer as to when this is going to end. I think that we owe it to the ratepayers for that. And I know I'm not going to get it tonight, so I am going to vote in favor.
Thank you. Julie, I trust that you'll be keeping the city council informed as the months go by as to the status of this surcharge?
Yes, we will.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, looking for a motion. Councilor McLaughlin?
I'll move to adopt resolution number 20-017, amending the city recycling plan and authorizing a 2.16% surcharge for collection of recyclables in the city of the Dalles effective July 13th, 2020.
To a second? Second. It's been moved by Councilor McLaughlin and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the proposal. Any more questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is 9C, expanded use of outdoor spaces agreement. City manager, who will give the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, we sent the concept of our use for expanded outdoor space to you. I think a few weeks ago. We've been talking about it for a couple of meetings, so I know that you've had lots of time to look that over. And we developed an agreement with Main Street, and Mr. Warren is in attendance to help answer questions that you may have with Main Street as well. Basically, Main Street will run the program, and it will focus on sidewalk alternatives. For instance, if someone is using the sidewalk area for retail space or for additional seating for their restaurant, they can put in a temporary sidewalk that takes people out and around that seating, and then more parklets. And I understand from Mr. Warren's email previously that Main Street is also in agreement with this plan and ready to get moving already. So we think it's a good plan and a good way to start to help with our economic recovery for our local businesses. And we're recommending that the council approve it. It does have an ending date of October 31st, just because we thought that's kind of the end of the good weather season. And then if we need to, we can revisit it again in the spring.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Mr. Warren, is there anything you'd like to add to Julie's remarks?
I'm smiling mostly because you're calling me Mr. Warren. It's like, I'm old now. No, it's been really great work. Yeah, I appreciate that. So first I wanted to say welcome, Scott Randall, and to you and the rest of you great volunteers and all the paid staff on the city. Thanks for helping put this together. This is great. We already have 11 businesses that have signed up to get one of these platforms put in front of their business. In fact, Sedition Brewery and Last Stop would like a couple of them. Every one of those 11 businesses said that we just need the sidewalk bypass. We don't need a parklet because we want to operate our business as close to our doors as possible. So one of the things that, and I'll get to that in a second, is essentially how do we make sure that the money doesn't get locked up in parklets when people are just wanting the bypasses. But this is going to be great because it allows people that have interior spaces that are restricted as much as 50%. Steve Harris did a great write-up in the Exhibit A that's just wonderful, that goes through all the details. So this is a great and excellent plan. And the other part is that Main Street over time, after the program ends this year, we've got storage space at the county bus barn, and we'll have these things put away and covered, and then we'll use lead time, like February or March of next year, to sign people up again for this. Regardless of whether there's a virus or not, these are great opportunities for businesses to have more on the street and visibility. And as we get more people looking at cool things going on downtown, the more people hit the sidewalks, more people on the sidewalks, more purchases are made. So this is awesome. Thank you, everyone. Now, as far as the details, there is on page, where's my notes here? Page 26 of your packet. Let's go down there. Tell me when some of you are there with me. So inside of Exhibit A, the very first paragraph identifies Downtown Parklets program. So this was how Steve had put together the original splitting of the 50K to half to parklets and half to the sidewalk bypasses. And this is the part that, you know, no one has been actually interested in. It's actually an additional expense to provide things like planters or benches and other things on top of the platforms. If we take the requirement that half goes to parklets and half goes to sidewalk bypasses and just say it goes to this program, and then Main Street will just work with the business demand to provide the platforms, because regardless, they use the same platform. So that's essentially my ask tonight, is that we remove the restriction to separate the monies, because I don't want to see this wonderful contribution from the city budget, half of it get frozen because no one wants to use a parklet. Let's see if I had anything else here. Dun, dun, dun. So that's really it in a nutshell. Basically just need to remove that part. We're ready to go. We've got the Dalles Ironworks working on design for us for a levelable platform that's essentially 8 by 16 to fit into a parking space. And I know that Steve has been working with Public Works to identify what all the ADA requirements are. So we would, once you approve this, get together with Steve and Public Works, get Big John from the Dalles Ironworks to come down too, and we'll make sure that we get a good design. But essentially it looks like tubular aluminum frames. Then we'll have 3/4 inch to 1 inch plywood on top that's all sealed down with the polymer acrylic with a gridded surface to make sure it's got good traction. So that's what we've got put together as a rough design right now, and we're looking forward to moving forward with this. So any questions for me?
Does anybody have any, Julie, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to point out that we did recognize that change that Don Warren just spoke about, and in the agreement itself, it's just a flat sum of $50,000. So that gives them the flexibility to decide how many sidewalks they need or parklets.
Excellent. Yeah, I noticed that you made that change. I thought, well, it's already handled. Then I read through Exhibit A, and I just wanted to make sure there's no confusion. So excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
Any questions for either Mr. Warren or Ms. Kruger? Looking for a motion to approve the agreement.
I move to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Main Street to implement and manage the expanded outdoor retail space program.
I'll second.
Moved by Council Randall and seconded by Council Warren to approve the agreement. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9D, legislative priorities. Julie?
It's the Julie show tonight. Most of you, I think with the exception of Councilor Randall, have experienced this project before. The League of Oregon Cities comes out with their list of legislative priorities for the upcoming legislative session, and they ask each city to submit 4 issues that they think are the most important to be worked on by the League of Oregon Cities. And then every time we get the list, staff goes through it and we offer you our perspective, which is in the staff report. And our 4 that we selected were COVID-19 economic recovery investments, expedited siting for shelter and affordable housing, long-term transportation infrastructure funding, and mental health service delivery. Those are not in any ranked order, and the League doesn't want a ranked order. And then we also provided you with all the explanations for each of their items. Then the City Council can either agree with what we've come up with, or you can work together and develop your own 4, and then we will submit your top 4 priorities to the League.
Anybody have any questions for the city manager? I have one. Was there any serious discussion about item U, which stands for ugly, useless, and undesirable property tax reform?
Just a moment, let me look at it.
Couldn't help it. That word's no joke.
I don't remember anyone voting for that in our meeting. We kind of did a vote to get it started. The reason we landed on the ones we did was because we felt they were the most urgent for our community. So while tax reform is important and valuable, we didn't think it was as urgent as the ones we selected.
Might not be as urgent because we've been talking about it for decades and nothing ever gets done. So. Councilor Long Curtis, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So what was the thinking behind adding the long-term transportation infrastructure funding? Because I do believe it's important, but when I read through it, it was talking about multimodal. And then when you look up the definition of that, I mean, we're not really looking to have scooters delivering things in town, high traffic. So I was just curious what the staff's thought process was on that one.
Okay. Dave, do you want to respond to that one? He's here. I don't know if I told him.
Sure, thank you.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here. I just have a little delay, so I apologize for that. Part of that is becoming pretty important that with the funding that we get from the state, with the adoption of more fuel efficient vehicles, the state gas taxes that are collected and then shared with cities and counties are going down. The state is looking at revising the models that it uses rather than just a straight cents per gallon tax. And it's something that as their revenues are already declining and are projected to decline further. And it affects not only the monies that the state collects directly, but also the monies that the state gets from the federal government by the same means. So they want to start work sooner rather than later on figuring out what the future funding models are going to look like. And that's why we thought it was important to be thinking about that now. And I think we even had it on our list last year as well.
So can I have a follow-up on that, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I agree with that, everything that Dave said. We only get 4, and so I guess how I look at it is, which are the 4 things that we most need lobbying in the legislature? Which are the things that won't happen if the League of Oregon Cities doesn't go and really advocate for it? And I think one that I would like to bring up, and I'll leave it to the group if they're interested, or if they, because we only get 4. But it is the housing and services investment. And if you take a look at that one, I think it's on the second page of the examples at the bottom there. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is I think with transportation, they've already passed some legislation and they know that they've got to do something with the declining revenues. I don't think that that's going to be an issue because they are always looking for new revenue. But this particular thing that we're lobbying for does what I was talking about earlier, which is getting not only the homeless people off the street, because it provides resources for that, but it actually helps us with our affordable housing and with the wave of expected evictions that we're planning. I hate to say planning, but that we're expecting due to COVID-19, because so many people have not been able to pay their rent, but it's all going to come due at the same time. And there's data saying that when that happens, there's going to be a lot of people kicked out and either homeless or couch surfing or whatever it is. And this, we lobby for this. We're trying to get more money to prevent that, to pay people's back rent if they qualify. It would go like through CAP. And then there are other things that would help us here with our long-term affordable housing issues. And so that's why I'm advocating for it. I think it gives us an immediate relief on something that I'm not sure that there's another agency that's so vocally advocating for it. And it gives us a lot of local control, because those dollars, even though they come with a general stream where they're supposed to go, it's really up to the CAP office and whoever is facilitating that to determine what is best for our community.
I, for one, wouldn't have any objection to adding item H to the list. The problem is, which, if we did that, we'd have to get rid of one other item.
Yeah.
Julie, did you guys, did the staff discuss item H in any depth?
Yeah, that also was an important one to us. It just didn't quite get as many votes, I think. But I do agree with Councilor Long Curtis. I think as far as urgency and getting the dollars into our community that we can use as we see fit, that might be a better item to have on your list for this session. And maybe we put off the transportation infrastructure funding until the following session. And that doesn't mean that they won't advocate for as many of these as they can. It's just us saying this is super important to our community.
Yeah, I think we need to emphasize that the League of Oregon City is are constantly lobbying on all these things in Salem. So how does everyone feel about substituting item H for long-term transportation and infrastructure funding?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the 4 priorities as recommended by the city staff with one exception. And that would be substituting item H, housing and services investment for long-term transportation infrastructure funding. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion. So I'll move to approve the League of Oregon Cities legislative priority recommendation based on staff recommendations with the exception of replacing the long-term transportation infrastructure funding issue with the housing and services investment issue.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved by Councilor Long Curtis, seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to approve the 4 priorities as discussed. Is there any more questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll get that submitted before the deadline.
Any other business to come before the city council? Councilor,
I would just say that any of the increase in tax type issues that are coming before the legislature at this time, with all the things that are going on in our state, should be looked at very carefully rather than putting an increased harm to our businesses out there that are trying to hang on as it is. One of those was in Section A, but that's just one of a number of increases that are being looked at out there at the legislative level. And I think the League of Oregon Cities should be very, very careful about what they recommend when it comes to raising taxes on our small businesses in the state of Oregon.
I agree.
thank you for that comment. Anybody else? Okay, with that, thank you all very much for attending. I hereby adjourning this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isaiah, for the sound. It was much better.
Much better, thank you. Here's